Hey everybody, how's it going? So today we're going to be working on a MacBook that was sent in. It doesn't have a problem description, but it looks like I already have found it. If you take a look over here, look at this. The moment that I opened it up, I unplugged this little battery cable over here. You know, I usually unplug the battery before I get started work on any MacBook board repair. And there's two connections in the new ones. They actually have the data connection entirely separate from the power connection. So the power connection is over here, and the data connection, which is going to be where the battery communicates with the computer to tell it how full it is or how empty it is, stuff like that, is over here. And that cable is corroded because it looks like liquid got over there. So I'm going to unplug the battery, and I'm going to make the assumption that the reason this customer sent this in is because it doesn't see the battery or it doesn't charge the battery, likely because that connector needs to be fixed and replaced. Let's see if the board turns on at all. So we're going to see that. As you can see, 20 volts, 600 milliamps, fan spinning. So really what needs to happen here is a replacing of this battery cable, an examination of the machine thoroughly to figure out why there's corrosion over here. Because again, I could just replace that cable and clean that area, but I mean, liquid had to get in there somehow, and it most likely leaked in. And if it leaked in there, it may have gotten other areas. I hate these alcohol dispensers, I really do. Let me show you. The tyranny of the alcohol dispenser. Look at this. I don't know what that word means, mental. Have you decided whether you want to have a store in your next place? It's kind of like asking if I've decided if I want food in my next lunch. That's a really nastily burned pin. I would want to replace this connector altogether. I don't trust this. This looks really bad. Just shockingly bad. I wouldn't even bother trying to reflow and reuse this. Sometimes I try to reflow and reuse the existing connector, but I look at that pin, man. You know, I could probably, you know, clean the rust up a little bit on that. And it's just going to come back here in a day. Or a month, or right outside the warranty. Oh, John DeComo. Yeah, I have caulk on everything on that bike, but the one thing I didn't put caulk on is the one part that's not liquid resistant. I feel like I should have now. I screwed up by not caulking it. Now notice this. See how these two pads are missing? There's actually no pads because, as you can see, unconnected. It doesn't actually go to anything. So these pads are NC, the ones that you see that are not really doing anything, NC. It means there's no jumper for me to run because there's nothing actually there. That's why when there's corrosion or anything like that, those pads are going to be the ones where everything comes off first because there's nothing physically there. So there's no jumper for me to run because there's nothing that is going to. It's not transmitting to anywhere. NC. Could have been nicer with the scraping, admittedly. Yeah. Admittedly, I could have been nicer with some of the scraping there. I wasn't in the hot air mood for that connector today. I was... Now, you're never supposed to take the heat off without also removing the wick. So that was not a smart move on my part, and hopefully you learn from my mistake. I haven't tried the FLIR attachment for the iPhone since I don't have an iPhone. I don't know, Pablo. It depends on whether I feel like it. I'm not feeling it at the moment, to be honest with you. I just murdered another unconnected pad. It kind of feels good murdering unconnected pads. It's like, die, you unconnected bastard, die. What happened, guy whose name probably precludes the reason he broke up with his girlfriend? What's going on? Yeah, I'm not good with breakups either. I usually always wind up going back to a bad relationship because I want to save the adversary. Jim Camp's negotiating book really applies to life as much as it does to, business negotiations. It applies to personal relationships very well, too. I always wind up trying to save the adversary, and typically the adversary is the person that I'm supposed to be breaking up with that I don't. Okay, I'm going to take this connector off of a donor board. Paul Daniels is here. Oh no, Snow Chains, I didn't even bother sending the lowball offer. They wanted a 6-month deposit on that place. They actually wanted a 6-month deposit. And they said, maybe we could consider 4 months for you. And it's like, yeah, how about 2 months? Because that's 2 to 3 months. That's the standard everywhere. I said, maybe if this place is amazing. If it was amazing, but it's not amazing. The places in New York City are never amazing. They're always shitholes. Paul Daniels is asking a question I don't have the capability to answer right now. I don't have it on the desk. But those boards are the same, besides like some diodes or something over here. Otherwise, except for that, they're almost the exact same boards, so I never particularly care about the difference anyway. Especially since I only have the schematic and board view for one of them. Paul Daniels knew to ask a quick question. A trick question. That sucks, Dakota. Now I heat the board from the bottom instead of the top because heating the board from the bottom means I'm not going to melt the plastic in the connector. Technically you can heat it from the top and not melt it. It's just a more difficult thing to do, and I tend to try to avoid making my life difficult when there's no good reason for it. You're welcome to make your life difficult if you'd like, but I try to keep my life easy as often as I can. Actually, that's a lie. I moved to a space that is way too much money. And I run a business in New York City, so if anything, I actually lied directly to all your faces by saying that. I don't know why, or what compelled me to do such a thing. Guess now you know you can't trust anything that I say. What's your take on new MacBook Pros? I don't know and I don't care. I really don't care about them. I don't care. I don't use MacBooks, so I don't really care about new models. I don't really follow them. Take no interest in them. I don't know. It's a MacBook. Don't really check them out. I don't review them. I don't wait outside a line in the Apple Store. Excited to try it. Don't read blogs, that speculate on the specifications of them. I see it once somebody brings it into repair. And then I still hate it because I don't usually have parts to new machines for several years after they're released. So I'm usually salty about new machines for a pretty long time. What caused Building 7 to fall? Probably Paul Daniels' software. The architects, when they were putting together the building, were likely using Flex Board View or Open Board View when they were doing the initial construction of the building, and it probably missed an archway somewhere or something. So a building that was supposed to be able to take the force of an aircraft was not able to. I actually used my shaky hand against in my favor on that one by pushing forward on the clip and then rolling all the way around as I push down on the board. As I push down on the board, I'm making more contact with the solder pad that needs to be hot, and I'm giving it more time to melt into place. Buying a refurbished laptop a good idea on average? Is dating at bars a good idea on average? Too general a question to really be able to give an answer to. Yeah, it's kind of an impossible answer. That connector's as crooked as a New York City real estate, actually. That's what you... Shaky hand, shaky hand. But every one of those joints looks good to me. Those are happy joints. I did not have the pad be cold. A lot of people try solder the pin, but without heating the pad under it, and it results in a cold joint, and we don't have that here. So now I'm going to take this cable that's on the battery that attaches the battery to the machine for the alcohol in the hand. No alcohol in the hand. I don't have any dry skin lotion over here when that happens. So we're going to get another one of these cables to attach this to this. And I'll be right back, and we'll see if that works. So just be right back after a message from our sponsors. Insert ad here. If you're interested in doing the type of work that we do in this video, repairing motherboards at component level, and you'd like to learn more for free, I'd highly suggest that you check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Rossman Group. When you visit the channel, you can click on Playlists, scroll down, and you'll see a playlist called MacBook Component Level Logic Board Repairs. On this playlist, you will find over 600 videos detailing how to fix MacBook motherboards. If you feel like the content in these videos is a little bit too advanced for you, or like you need to learn a little bit more electronics theory before you're able to understand what we're going over, you can scroll down in the video description and click on the beginner's guide. When you click on the beginner's guide, you'll see this 150 slide guide that goes over everything from short detection to how transistors work, to how data lines work, to how buck converters work, so that you can better understand how to do these types of repairs. If you would like more free help, you can visit repair.wiki. On repair.wiki, we have all of the devices listed by model and board number, along with common solutions and common problems, so that you can get an idea of where to look for your particular problem. If you're unsure how to fix it and you just want to pay somebody else to fix it, look no further than rossmangroup.com. On rossmangroup.com, you can find repair services as well as mail-in repair services where you can mail in your repair from anywhere and we'll take care of it for you. If you'd like some paid help with your board repair but you'd still like to do it yourself, you can check out boards.rossmangroup.com, where we have expert-level technicians that will answer your questions for the low, low price of $29 a month. If you'd like to learn how to do this in an in-person classroom environment, look no further than rossmangroup.com, where you can go here, scroll down, click Learn Logic Board Repair, and sign up for a paid class to learn how to fix motherboards and learn in person how to do the work that we do here on this channel. We have paid resources available, and we also have free resources available for those who'd like to learn who don't have a budget to be able to pay for an in-person class. Lastly, if you'd like to purchase any of the tools that we used in this video, you can check the video description and you will see all of the tools that we use, from microscopes to freeze spray to soldering stations to soldering tips and so on and so forth. And you can visit places like store.rossmangroup.com to purchase some of the tools we use, like the Atten 862 Hot Air Rework Station. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now. Recommendations for desoldering stations, working with mostly automobile electric components. What iron temp do you run for most of these repairs, and what temp do pads start to come off? It really depends on the board, honestly. Like I have my iron set to 840, but if I was working on more sensitive boards, I'd have my iron set to 650 to 700. Support is one way to put Paul Daniels, but so I like the Atten 862 rework station. And Erica does not get any royalties. Thank you. I removed one CF28 from inventory. I also noticed that nobody else here is. That's lame. Have to have a meeting about respecting the inventory system. See, thank you very much, Parziviel Uwu. Parziviel Uwu. That's an interesting name. Parziviel Uwu. Uwu. The stream brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends for £2 from the Coder. I've never played that game. Is it any good? Okay. Let's see if it sees the battery. This computer needs a serious cleaning. The screen is dirty. The keyboard is dirty. The insides are dirty. All right, it now sees the battery where it did not see the battery before. So the issue with this computer is that there was corrosion on the connector responsible for the battery speaking to the machine. We scraped that off the board after moving the connector. We scraped off the corrosion, and we replaced the connector with another one. It's not the most fun thing to do if you don't have a steady hand, which I most certainly do not anymore. Considerably worse than what it used to be. However, you don't need to have a perfectly steady hand to solder a connector. One of the things I hope you guys pick up on is that I will come up with interesting and creative ways to get around it. So, if my hands keep swinging out to the right, well, I'll figure out a way to push on the pin and the board in a way where moving out to the right actually means that I'm avoiding the plastic part of the connector, which I don't want to burn, while simultaneously ensuring that that tip, which is very small, has enough time to heat up the pad on the board in addition to the pin to ensure I'm getting a good joint. Also, if you have an unsteady hand, one thing that helps make it steady is if you push down. Because if you're doing this, well, if you're stuck pushing down, then there's less for you to shake. There's resistance. And you do need to push down on the board in order to get the heat from your iron onto the pad, but you also need to push down on the board in order to get the connector to stay flat on the board, which is something that I need to do anyway. And it's going to help me keep my hand steady enough for long enough that I can get the connector on the board. As you can see from the schematic and the board view for this particular MacBook, on this MacBook, there is a connector for the battery that has an SM bus data line. You have the clock line on pin 2, and you have the data line on pin 3. And the rest are not connected pins. Not connected, not connected, not connected, not connected. Another thing to understand here is that the not connected pins are going to come off the board a little bit easier because they're not actually attached to anything that is going to absorb the heat. So those pins, especially if you're scraping, those pads are going to come off the board immediately. However, since those pads are not actually moving anything, there's nothing really going to any other part of the board through those pins, it doesn't matter as much. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, for cosmetic purposes, I prefer that the pads stay on the board for cosmetic purposes. But if you're not having the best day and you manage to knock some of them off, it's not the end of the world because they literally don't go anywhere. It's kind of like if you have a door in your house and the doorknob doesn't work properly, but that door literally goes to nowhere. There's a wall behind it. You likely won't care if that doorknob doesn't work on that door because there's a concrete or brick wall right behind it. It's not really something that matters. And over here, you can see that these data lines over here for this is going to go straight to what I believe is the system management controller, which is over here on the other side of the board. This is the good old-fashioned SMC over here, and it's also going to go to the battery charging chip. The battery charging chip is going to want to know things like, let's say, is the battery fully charged? Is there any point to continue charging it? Or is it dead so that we know so that we can start sending it some charge? It's also going to want to communicate with the battery so it can understand things like cycle count and all these other things that people like to know about their battery. Now it turns on, And what we have to do now is take everything out of this computer to make sure that it's clean. If liquid was able to get over there, you know that on the other side of the board there's going to be corrosion somewhere. Maybe corrosion is hiding in the trackpad. Maybe corrosion is hiding on the SSD or in any other part of the computer. And we want to make sure when we give this back to the customer that they don't come back here ever again unless they screw it up. I don't want there to be some little piece of water that's hiding somewhere in this computer that's going to then cause it to come back here when it shouldn't come back here. I don't want this to ever come back here unless they spilled something again, which hopefully they won't. We hope they learn their lesson. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.